Today, R.I.P. Hedonic Index. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, the world's latest post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. And today I'm joined by property insider Edwin Almeida. Hello, Edwin.
Oh, hi, Martin. Sorry, mate. I'm a little bit sad today. I'm just on my way to the funeral because I just heard that the Hedonic Index had passed away. So I've just got some flowers out of my garden and just going to head out there. So I'm a little bit teary-eyed, as you can see. But let's get on with the show anyway, as they say.
It is extremely sad, isn't it? It will be long remembered as, well, actually I'm not quite sure as what. But they've been warning for a few weeks that the data was actually getting very thin. And presumably, the market discovery was next to zero. So therefore, on what basis were they actually projecting anything? So it's quite interesting, really.
Well, it is quite interesting. I think if we look at it retrospectively, didn't the Hedonic Index rise by 1.1 or 1.2% the Monday after the federal election last year? I mean, so what seemed to have happened then is people bought property on Saturday, transacted on the Sunday, and they registered, with the Valuer General on Monday morning, so that then the Hedonic can get the settlement figures there on the day, so they can publish their figure, the numbers. I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous. I've said it all along, and I continue to say it. The numbers have been and have always been. Best case scenario, 60 to 72 days behind. So what we're getting now, and what we started to get was the real numbers as to what this downturn was causing to the market and the downward spiral that we're currently on, that we're showing. And of course, they don't want to show that. They only wanted to show the green lights in the rising market, because those numbers were from early January. Mid-January, February, Martin, as you recall, there were only 13,200 properties registered or listed for sale in the on domain across the Sydney region, and now that we're about 17,500. The market just come to a complete standstill almost, and it's frightening.
Yeah, so let's just reflect on that a little bit, right? Now, it is they say it's a daily index, but as you say, it's based on information that's somewhat delayed. It's also probably true to say that the degree of delay and precisely how the numbers were crunched was always very, very opaque. So we're not really sure. We know that there are players out there who actually do have up-to-date information based on current sales, but that information is never made public.
No, it's and this is what I say. This is my beef with Domain and my beef with REA, or as the viewers will know it as realestate.com.au. They've got some very, very rich data, as I call it, because it's on the day data. We as real estate agents have to load up information on the back end of those portals in order to get things done. If we don't load specific information on the back end, well, guess what? The ads don't change, the headings don't change, the photos don't change, and we're stifled by it. So in that is the richest form of data, but they don't give us that. They don't give us that. Even when there are price withholds, we still have to register on the back end of REA what the prices were, or Domain what the prices were sold for, in order to move the listing from under offer to sold or whatever. So. But we don't get that, and that's the closest thing we're going to get to live data, Martin. And unfortunately, these portals won't release that live because it doesn't really suit their rhetoric. It doesn't really suit what they're professing is happening in the market.
Well, it is fascinating because if you talk to property valuers, as I do quite often, they've been signaling to me over the last 3 or 4 months that they've actually been downvaluing properties simply because of the fact that there are some more risks in the market now, and the market movements have been on the downside. And we know from anecdotal evidence that there have been significant falls in some areas, but of course all the indices have tried to resist telling that story. And there are still estate agents out there who are saying, no, great time to buy, first time buyers, come into the market now, you can get an absolute bargain. It's all about, unfortunately, spin rather than reality. And I do think we need a grounded source of better information about what's happening to home prices, because I think that the public generally have been deceived for a long time.
They've been deceived for a very, very long time. You've only got to look at the articles that these publications, the main portals, put out. They're all pro rise, pro buy, pro sale, and the agents that they interview, they've got vested interests in the property arena. I mean, if anything, what I've exposed to the rest of the world is actually being a detriment to myself and my business in one way or another. But these things need to be told, because we're all about putting out the truth. We're all about putting out what's really happening out there in the marketplace, and being fair and equitable, as opposed to being your typical shady propagator of rises and increases and putting out all this fear of missing out when there's really a lot of property out there, both for rent and for sale, that people can choose from now. I mean, some of the numbers that we've seen with some of our clients, both in the rental space and in the sale and in the purchase price, we've seen some tremendous drops, in the rental, in some areas of anywhere between 20 and 30% drops in rental asking prices, and even then we go in there with lower offers in order to get the property. Likewise with the properties that are listed for sale. One of the things is what agents are asking for those properties. And another thing is what the vendors will eventually accept. One of the key indicators that we need to look at, or people need to start paying more attention to, is days on market with a lot of these properties, not so much the auction clearance rates of 70% and 80% that of the very low volumes that have been coming to pass of late.
Yes, well, the clearance rates are another joke, really, aren't they? Because if you actually have a very small number that were listed in the first place, right, and some of those sold, you can actually get what appears to be quite a big number, but it's a meaningless number, right? It's just so small as to be just, it doesn't tell you anything. And yet, of course, it's all spruiked up. It was last weekend they were saying, 70% in Sydney, everything's now wonderful again. So, unfortunately, it's the same old, same old.
Yeah, but again, the underlying story, the real story, as I keep on putting out there, is not the 70% or the 72% or 80% clearance rates. It's actually the fact that only 70 properties got sold by way of auction on the weekend, and by way of private treaty, there's probably closer to 200 properties that got sold over the week. And when you look at the number of agents that are based in Sydney alone, you probably have in the vicinity of about 17,000 selling agents that have made those transactions. So divide the amount of commission across 300 properties over 17,000 agents, and that's the state of the industry. And that, again, that's a further underlying story there, and that is the industry itself is on its knees, and these are business owners. These are business owners that have got mortgages themselves, that have got these are people that are in the workforce. 53,000 of them in New South Wales, as I've said, for quite a number of years now. That we got told by Fair Trade New South Wales, and yet people don't seem to comprehend the impact that it's having on the industry. Martin, there's another figure that's being bantered around, and that is the 439,000 mortgages that are on this 6-month honeymoon period, and yet what people don't seem to understand, or perhaps that they don't realise, is that although we're talking about 439,000 mortgages, some of those mortgages could represent two properties. That could represent two, or that could even represent three properties. We don't know. And a large portion of those mortgages, in one particular bank, 30 to 40% of those of the mortgages that are on that holiday period, they also have attached to them business loans, which means that the businesses are suffering as well. So you've got, I think somebody else I can't remember who put out the numbers. It may be yourself. There's in total there could be something like 700,000 properties. When you break it all down, 700,000 properties that are on mortgage repayment holidays. That's 700,000. We don't need many of those properties to come on the for sale listing market for the already crippled sales side of things in the Sydney market. We only need 2,000 more properties, and it'll be on. It will also be on ICU as the Hedonic was a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I feel you're right. And, the fact is that we are in a state of turmoil in household finances, in the mortgage industry, and in the property sector. But people need to understand this isn't going to get fixed anytime soon. This isn't going to suddenly cure itself in a week or two just because you can now walk people around a home, right? That there is a fundamental question about people's level of confidence and people's level of appetite with regard to property. And it's interesting that I'm getting more and more data coming out of my surveys of property investors who are basically throwing in the towel, saying, I can't make this property investment work now. There's no capital growth looking like there's going to be in the next 18 months to 2 years. I'm getting rentals being squeezed, or my property's vacant, and I've still got the mortgage to try and actually support. So that's the sort of part of the story. But also now I'm seeing in the owner-occupier segment, more and more households are struggling now with this cash flow problem. And okay, they're being supported with government support, and they're being supported with interest on principal repayment holidays, but that's going to end at some point. And, that's probably going to be September, give or take. So we've got to be thinking 6 to 12 months ahead. And it's worth reflecting also, Edwin, that in the global financial crisis, properties in the US dropped over 3 years from the crisis point, right? It took that long to work through. And my own view is we could well be seeing the same sort of trajectory here. This isn't going to get fixed in a few weeks.
No, it's not. It's and I sort of lean more towards the side that come August, September, we could see a major avalanche in the property arena, given the fact that businesses, so many properties are tied up, so many principal places of residence are tied up with business loans, and that's a scary thing. Now, the banks will be reluctant to call on mortgages that are directly attached to principal places of residence, because they don't want to be seen as the big bad wolves. But at the end of the day, a lot of these properties, they've got lines of credit on these properties they've been using them to prop up the businesses. They've been using them to prop up the credit cards that have been propping up the businesses. They've been using them to prop up the third tier, fourth tier, and all the loan shark lending that they've acquired over the years in order to sustain. The liquidators that I talk to, most of them are just telling the people that are coming in, there is no way that a lot of these businesses that are going to go broke, that are going broke, are going to be able to trade out of the financial woes. And so they've got two choices. As I said, they either trade out, or they sell early and try to maximize the return on all their assets earlier before everybody starts dumping them. Because come August, September, there is going to be a huge avalanche of properties that are going to be listed. Now, we're going through the winter period, so the for sale listings in the Sydney region are stagnating around the 17,500 mark, which like I said, which you already bought the Sydney sales market to its knees anyway by the sheer fact that we increased by about 4,000 rapidly in a matter of a month or two. And this coronavirus, COVID-19, also has had a huge impact on it, on the sentiment and everything else. But we're also going to get another avalanche of properties, continue to get the avalanche of properties for rent. And as you said, Martin, this is where how do you negatively gear when you don't have a job? The mortgage still needs to be paid. Everything else needs to be paid. But see, these are the things that the hedonic never again to be seen index should have been saying, should have been telling the people. The property pundits from Domain and REA should be writing about the perils of getting into mortgages, getting into these. Following the Spruikers and the Nathans and the Michaels of going north, south, east, and west, amassing debt, having $2 million worth of debt on their shoulders with $300,000 worth of equity because they got these shady loan approvals through their in-house finance brokers and in-house lawyers. I mean that is criminal. That is what you and I have been talking about for a number of years, Martin. That the stories that should have been told. There should have been a lot of warning signs through these journeys, but no, they chose to spruik the New South Wales, the federal government, mantra of everything's fine. Put all your eggs in the property basket, and property can only go up. With a proposed $1.3 billion ghetto to be built in Mount Druitt and a $2.3 billion ghetto to be built in the northwest part of Sydney. I mean, that's the answer that the New South Wales government has in order to stave off the perils that a lot of investors in the property sector is going to face. I mean, that's absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah, well, I agree. And of course, Victoria announced something, 2.7 billion spending, including on property. But there's another thought that I've got. The ABS doesn't actually track home prices independently, right? They actually rely on the CoreLogic indices to be able to feed into their public statistics. Now, I don't know precisely which of the CoreLogic indices they use, whether it's the Hedonic or whether it's another one. But it raises, in my mind, the question as to what extent the publicly declared home price trajectories are also accurate.
Yeah, well, that's a $64,000 question, but I think you and I know the answer to that, and that's been the BS all along. But it's interesting how the relationship with CoreLogic and REA went their separate ways. 12 months ago or so, or maybe a little bit longer, and it'll be interesting to see what REA start publishing. As I said, they've got some rich data, they've got some live data, but they've been hesitant. It's the hesitation of publishing this, the more relevant information. I don't get it. I really don't understand why. But then again, Martin, what pisses me off is the fact that the industry, the real estate industry, actually built realestate.com and built Domain to the authority that they are now. We built them by the advertising money that we paid day in, day out, month in, month out, year in, year out, and we built these beasts, and now only to for them to now withhold information that is rich, not only to the industry, to the industry stakeholders, but also to the general public, and I think that's criminal. And I mean, then you've got this other idea of the government wanting to throw in 50, or the construction lobby group wanting to throw in the government to throw in $50,000 first-time buyers grant as long as they're new. I mean, seriously, it's never worked in the past, and it will never work in the future, because the only ones that get the $50,000 are the real estate agents, the developers, and the builders.
Well, it just lifts home prices, doesn't it? We know that those sorts of incentives are actually completely unable to solve housing affordability. It just lifts prices higher. And it's just worth going back on those portals, just worth reflecting, right? So Domain is connected to Nine, and who of course has all those newspapers, and REA is connected to News Corp. So people should understand that these are part of large enterprises that are actually as much about media as they are about property. And so there's a mutually reinforcing set of relationships there that actually would suggest that you cannot necessarily trust what you read.
Exactly. I think that's very much an understatement. But yeah, we know, and it's. I think people have become the wiser, and I think one of the good things is that social media and the other platforms have allowed us to yourself, to myself, to put different channels, different media forms of media outlets out there to propagate what we believe the general public should know, or should at least get to know, in order to make a more accurate and a more comprehensive decision, as opposed to being led by the nostrils like a bull. When you lead a bull by the nostril, and it's absolutely horrendous what's been going on. So let's see what happens with moving forward, Martin, but I really, again, the indicators are not there for any upturn. And one of the thoughts that come to mind at the moment was one of the people, I can't remember his name, but one of the people that jumped ship from CoreLogic over to REA was put out some tweets today that with the notion that property prices could rise, and that unemployment wouldn't affect it, because our appetite for property is good, and the people that do have a job will lift values. I mean, what have you been smoking whilst you've been in the bloody lockdown? Seriously, honestly, I think the federal police should pay you a visit, my friend.
Yeah, well, there are people still writing that property prices will go up, and they'll quote the Reserve Bank's model that doesn't actually take account of credit, right? And say when rates are dropping, interest rates are dropping, prices go up. So that's the simple model that some people have. And then other people are saying, well, it's not everybody who's got trouble. 58% of the population may be unemployed and being supported by the government, but we've still got the rest. It's just nuts. And what I worry about is that people who have saved up hard over the years and have got some money to make a transaction at some point, are still going to be lured into the market in a falling market and get left essentially with a property that is going to be worth a lot less. And as my friend Tony LeCountry says, anybody trying to sell now is looking for the greater fool. And unfortunately, there are still some out there.
Well, and that's who you've got to fish for. Look, if somebody came to me to sell their property, they're the people that you've got to fish for. And unfortunately, when you're getting paid to do a job, you do the job to the best of your ability. So you got to tell a certain story. Don't tell any Furbies, but you tell a story. You paint But I've always said, property sells itself. Property sells itself. I'm there. You're employing me to tell you the history of the property, to tell you things about the property that you may not see, to paint a picture of the local area, and you make that decision. I'm not there to force you to sign the document or tell you any BS stories about the market rising or this or that, and it's the view's not going to be built out and all this and all that. I mean, yeah, there is a greater pool, but transactions in the falling market, in the rising market, they're always going to be there. But I think those transactions are going to be, it's going to be a long time in between drinks, as they say, for the market. And that's why I say people need to start looking at days on market both for rental and days on market for properties that are for sale. And as the numbers increase, the days on market numbers are also going to increase, and that's also going to be a major driver. Martin, there's another sledgehammer or a grenade, as I call them, that I've been talking about, that is about to be dropped onto the Sydney market or the East Coast, Australia in general, and that is this illusion that there is Asian appetite or Chinese appetite for people to come over and buy property. That none of the WeChat discussions that my team and myself are involved with, that we monitor with friends and that over in Beijing and Guangzhou, Shenzhen and all that. None of the conversations that we monitor and the discussions in there are alluding to this. If anything, what a lot of people are trying to decide is whether they should keep it on the rental market or actually sell. And again, Martin, you and I know that there's close to 1.2 million properties that were vacant before all this came to pass. Anyway, there was already 1.2 million or so properties that were vacant, and the majority of them were owned by overseas investors. And so these are the unknown. This is the thing. And we talk in the millions on one side. We talk 700,000 properties that are on a repayment honeymoon or sabbatical, but yet all we need in the major capital cities is anywhere between 2,000 and 3,000, let's say 5,000 properties to drop on the market in Sydney and 5,000 properties to drop on the for sale market in Melbourne and likewise in Brisbane. And guess what? That's it. It's all over. Forget the meteorites that bring coronavirus. Forget the Martians that are going to bring the antidote next month and whatever else you believe in. Forget all that shit, because that's all it's required in order for the market to actually literally go into a major coma.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and people need to understand those dynamics, right? Because essentially all the indicators across the board are pointing down. There is really very little positivity that I can see, and therefore, expect prices to fall and to fall for some time. So I guess we've been warned. We hope that our viewers and listeners understand that there is a really important message here. Be really, really cautious. If you are going to transact in property, go find a local estate agent who really knows their stuff and who knows the local market. Don't rely on these, high-level reported moves, but be really cautious and really careful, and probably wait if you're going to buy, because next year you can probably buy for less.
Yeah, look, interview a few agents. Like I've always said, I've said interview a few agents. Look, and there are so many mechanisms, so many websites available, so many tools available for free, for people to get information on. And if not, they can always follow you and me on Twitter, man. We'll put the shit out there and we'll let them know where things are going anyway. Yeah.
Absolutely. They can always rely on you, Edwin, to give them the unvarnished truth, whatever it is. Look, I appreciate your time today. Thank you very much. And we'll keep a track on this, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon as things begin to develop.
Yeah, and whilst we were talking, I just got a text message, and I can't attend the funeral for the Hedonic. They told me that 10 people have already there, so I'd be number 11, so I wouldn't be able to attend. So anyway, be sure to say a prayer for the Hedonic, Padre, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll certainly hold a moment's silence, and then move on. So, see you again, Edwin. Cheers.
All right, man.
Take
care. All the best.
Bye.